of young people, because a lot of times we want to talk about how children are underserved and are in circumstances that is so hard for them to overcome. But I think brown people have been overcoming for hundreds of years through the diaspora. So when we talk about grit and resilience, I think we've got enough to go around for everyone, right? And so our children come ready to learn. And when we are around the country, what we hear from young people most readily is that they want to feel safe and supported. They say, I'm ready to learn, I'm ready to be in school, but do you adults care about my presence here? Right? Have you shown up to work? Right? So when you have young people in kindergarten who have these, or even preschool, let's take it a step back, who have these soft suspensions, right? Preschool is generally not regulated. And so people will say, your son keeps acting up. Can you take him home for a couple of weeks until he gets himself together and bring him back? Right? We don't think about the ways that we communicate with families and tell them that their children are not good enough, that their children don't fit our own cultural norms. Now, I'm going to challenge everybody in the room, because we are all privileged by the fact that we are here today, to check our privilege. Even middle-class brown people place respectability on the tops of the heads of our children as the entry point by which we begin to show them love. But do they not deserve love the moment that they came from the womb? Mm-hmm. That cradle-to-career pipeline cannot be created when the children earn our love and respect. Right? Are we here today? I have a church voice too. We want to go to church. Or we want to say, thank you. Right? Our children were born deserving our respect and care. And so the policies and practices that we implement, we talk about things like restorative practices. It is great to restore children into the community, but we have to want them there to begin with. Right? We talk about cultural competence. We talk about the fact that most children are being educated by people who don't look like them. I've never had a black male teacher in my entire K-12 career, right? It means something for children to see people who look like them in the classroom. But we also need to look at the griots and the community educators who may not be in the formal setting of the schoolhouse and figure out how we can collaborate to keep the community restored. That's what we learn from our children. That's what we learn from our partners in the community. Let's talk about the assets that the children bring, and let us step up to the plate to make sure my 3 daughters in a generation unnamed have great schools to go to and opportunities that we want for them to have for every child that we are educating. And so the Department of Education has provided great resources for us to take into our communities and use to look at why things are happening. If you go to ocrdata.ed.gov, ocrdata.ed.gov, you'll find a myriad of resources, a ton of data talking about what our children face. Children who might have been in foster care, homeless youth, students with disabilities, and definitely young women and men of color who are disparately being impacted by suspensions and expulsions that are oftentimes nonsensical and not showing that we are here to love them. The OCR data collection is also a support for communities interested and legislators interested in really piecing together and mining for strategies that can be used. The Department of Education is also working to ensure that we can move from policy to practice. So right now we are internally working on developing a convening so we can bring people from around the country together to really do that what next. Mr. Listenby and I were talking about the fact that a lot of times people want a, a cure, but they don't self-diagnose, right? They want a Band-Aid, they want a curriculum, they want a canned program placed on top of them, but that doesn't work, right? We need to bring people together to talk about what aspects of their own context might look like other people's contexts where they've been successful in building holistic communities that is willing to restore children who might have been pushed out, or to ensure that children are not pushed out to begin with. And going back to our summits around the country, we have a series coming up in Miami in May. On May 29th, we'll be at Florida Memorial University. On June 25th, we will be at UCLA doing another summit on educational excellence. We will likely be doing a summit during the ALC in September. And we will also have a summit at The Ohio State University in October. And so other than that, it is important for us to go out into the community. A lot of times people don't know what the administration is doing to support them. You've heard of the My Brother's Keeper initiative. Our initiative was also established under Barack Obama in 2012. There's also the Council on Women and Girls with a new task force focused on women and girls of color led by Dr. Kim Leary. And all of these groups are working together to make sure we can connect, again, the policies to practices that are already happening in the community. We also hear oftentimes terms like evidence-based, and frankly, we all know we can get evidence to prove whatever we want it to prove. And a lot of times there are communities that are innovating and doing things that we have young people like Eshe saying, you know, here's how you can relate to our community, or here's what I need for my schools to do. And we wait for 10 years to see if we can collect evidence on whether or not that works, right? And so we want to encourage people to do a lot less of that and a lot more of listening to young people, listening to communities, listening to our faith-based partners, listening to researchers who have been doing a great amount of work in the past 10 to 15 years to bring data together so that we don't have to keep reinventing the wheel. And so again, I'm going to yield at this time to make sure that we can get through the panel, but I encourage everyone to move in love. If you want to partner with us to support and provide safe environments that are high quality for all children, we encourage you to attend one of our summits. You can find us on Twitter at AFAM Education. We also host regular AFAM Ed Chats, hosting discussions live on Twitter, talking about the work that we do and ways we can engage the community. And we also encourage you to, in your own communities, have your own AFAM Ed Summit, or Hispanic Ed Summit, or Native American Ed Summit. You don't need the federal government to take action on what steps are required to make sure our children feel loved. Thank you.